Hill, the House could vote this week to direct House committees to compile a list of rules that they deem obstacles to job growth. Now, two different views from the top Republican and Democratic members of the committee at the center of today's action. First, a Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California. He chairs the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Welcome, Congressman Issa. You have said that your goal is not to do away with regulations. If not, what is the goal?
Well, the goal is to find out of the tremendous growth in regulations and regulatory actions, whether some of these actions have changed slightly, modified, enhanced, combined, or even streamlined just to be a little quicker, could cause American companies to be able to create more jobs. We often hear about the time it takes to get FDA approval versus the Europeans. These kinds of areas, including EPA and some of the obvious ones, were what we've begun a dialogue with job creators on to see if, in fact, we can be part of the solution to their job creation.
You mentioned the EPA, and in fact, it seems that more than half of the comments that have come in from business do have to do with environmental regulations. Do you believe that the environment simply is going to have to take a backseat while the economy struggles to get back on its feet?
Oh, not at all. Let's remember that, in fact, most of what they were complaining about are new standards, additional items that may not be ready for prime time. One example was this boiler MACT, M-A-C-T, where there's a new standard that even the EPA has said is flawed. They asked the courts to give them a delay, and yet the courts are saying, nope, you've made a standard, implement it, even if in fact it's not viable. So there are some things that happen. They don't happen often, but those things are the ones we want to review. And quite frankly, we're in harmony with the president, who's asking for this review and is broadly looking for a way to get the private sector hiring again through whatever means, and including regulatory alignment that might be necessary.
And you mentioned the president. Is that a significant step he's taken, do you think, in your direction?
I think in the direction of the American people. We don't view it as us versus him. If he sees, as we do, that these should be looked at, streamlined, see if we can't find a way to, as the president said, make things shovel ready, something he discovered was a lot harder to do when he got into trying to stimulate the economy. That's good for everyone, and particularly for employers who will make investments with some of the dollars sitting on the sidelines if the right symbols are coming from government and the right partnership with government.
Now, Chairman Issa, it is the case the ranking Democrat on your committee, Representative Elijah Cummings, and we're going to talk to him in a moment, he says that you've only asked businesses to give information about regulations, about the cost of regulation, and nothing about the benefit, and that you only invited witnesses today who were essentially critical of regulation. Is that a fair comment?
Well, I think it may be a little myopic. The offer we made at AmericanJobCreators.com was for anyone to come in and make their comments. We didn't limit who got on our website and did it. The letters we sent out was to some of the representatives of the largest companies and employers, but including small business, NFIB, and others like that. But you understand, the Business Roundtable and others that weighed in, these are the same groups the president reached out to with substantially the same question. So my ranking member may not understand that when I ask the same question as the president, it's for the same reason.
So, in other words, there weren't people out there with views who were left out?
Well, not at all. The minority chose a witness. Mr. Shapiro spoke on behalf of his views, which were, in a nutshell, and he reiterated them, that he sees no reason to have a cost versus benefit analysis. He thinks it's futile, meaning that no matter how much it costs, go ahead and do regulations. I would hope that instead of the progressive witness that they had, that they would have sensible groups that see an advantage to environmental progress while at the same time getting business progress, that win-win that we often look for but don't find in government, but we find it in the private sector whenever possible.
It's Mr. Cummings' view, as I understand it, that much of the current economic crisis is the result of inadequate regulation in the financial industry. Do you share that view?
Well, I think 2 years after a financial meltdown, after trillions of dollars being put back in the economy, when we have corporate leaders who have over $1 trillion sitting overseas in cash that won't bring it back because they don't have a place to invest it and don't want to pay the additional taxes, When we see lines of credit and capability, particularly for our larger companies, not being utilized, we should start looking beyond a financial crisis that was, in fact, 2 years ago and is largely behind us. I think the important thing is when you see global profits, and Mr. Cummings said this in the hearing, and they were exponential in their growth, no question at all, and then you find out that over 80% of those profit increases came from foreign operations, you realize America's beginning to be left behind in job creation, and that's what today's hearing was about. That's what we're going to continue trying to find. We look forward to hearing from all parties on this issue. We're certainly not making conclusions. We're just asking questions.
One last very quick question about some of the difficulties the Republican leadership in the House is having with new Tea Party-backed members who want deeper spending cuts and other things. Is the Tea Party, these freshman members who are backed by the Tea Party, are they basically now the driving force among House Republicans?
Well, I certainly think when many of my members, including some of these new members, are asking us to do better. We got to $100 billion in sensible cuts on an annualized basis. They're saying they want those cuts in 7 months, and we're working together to try to find them. But remember, that's the tip of the iceberg. We've got a $1.5 trillion deficit, so we're only talking about 1/15 of the deficit being carved away. We're going to have to do more with the president to really find ways to reduce the size of the burden of government to get people working again. And part of it is, if we can get job creation, we'll begin increasing the revenues to the government without tax increases, simply because people get back to work, don't need the aid, and are paying more taxes. That's the win-win that today's hearing was about.
Representative Darrell Issa, Chairman of the Oversight Committee, thanks very much.
You're most welcome.